Welcome to Book Watch, the podcast where pages meet screens. I'm your host, Sarah Day. Each week, I'll be joined by amazing guests to dive deep into the world of adaptations, comparing beloved books with their cinematic counterparts. From faithful retellings to bold reimaginings, we'll break down what worked, what didn't, and what made each adaptation unforgettable. Whether you're a bookworm, a movie buff, or both, you are in the right place. So grab your bookmark, grab your popcorn, and let's watch some books. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Book Watch. I have Krista John here with me again to continue our conversation about Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice and the 1995 BBC show adaptation, as well as the 2005 film adaptation. So part 2 is when we dive into the key plot points and compare how the adaptation brought to life the book. So we'll start with the opening scenes of both the show and the film. And that is Mr. Bingley has arrived to Netherfield, and we're introduced to all of the Bennets with their excitement about this man moving into the town.
Yeah, I think both versions did a really good job with this part, and they both included the iconic line about a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Like that's the most probably one of the most famous lines in literature, and both include it in some way. They do it in different ways, but I think that was really important to me to have that line be present. So the movie did it. And then yeah, I think Mr. Bennett's teasing of the girls is, I think both set the tone really well.
Yeah, that's a really
Yeah.
good way to put it. Mhm. And not only the tone of the story, but also the tone of each adaptation, because we've already talked a little bit about how the tones are so different between the two. So the way they introduce all the Bennets and that opening line sets the tone on how this adaptation is going to be.
Yeah, even the visuals on both are, if I
Mhm.
remember right, the movie opens with some of those like English countryside views, and so you get that the
Cinematic.
cinematography right from the
Yes.
beginning. Yeah,
Yep. It really is a beautiful film.
it is. Yeah.
Um, so anything else about the beginning before we get into the ball where we start getting into the meat of the story?
No, let's get into it.
Okay, so we first meet Mr. Darcy at the Meryton ball. It's a grand entrance. We first meet Mr. Bingley at this ball as well. It's a grand entrance, and in both adaptations, if I'm remembering correctly, everything just kind of stops as this new group of people come into the
It gets
scene.
extra awkward in the movie though, because it's a much bigger room, right? And it's
Right.
the whole place just, they've got the musicians like up on the balcony and like everyone stops.
Yes, and it's almost like it almost looks like kind of like a barn, right? Because it's
Yeah,
very
it
dark.
does.
Like the
Looks like
background's
a
very
like a
dark.
modern wedding venue. It's like,
Yes. And then
they're both
I
awkward.
don't think this happens in the show or the book. So correct me if I'm wrong, but in the movie, they share kind of a look, and Keira Knightley is almost like giggles. Like, did that just happen? Like, well, we shared a moment.
No, I don't think that happens. And I mean,
I
don't
didn't
quote
think
me on
so.
that. No, I don't think so. I don't think there's any hint of them having a connection. And that's one of the things that bothers me, I think, right away in the movie is that they do kind of make it seem like there's something there from the beginning. But in the book and in the show, there's really not. Like they really do not like each other. There's not even a
Mhm.
hint of them liking each other at the beginning.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
interesting well, and I think when you cut so much out for the film, you have to kind of just make that little tease,
you do.
to
Yeah.
kind of move things
Start
along
building
quicker.
it. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't like her. I get the two balls confused. So the first one is that when she goes in the movie goes under like the bleachers and
Yes.
giggles.
Yes,
Okay.
the
Like that
bleachers, yes.
that's another thing where I'm like, I feel like it's a high school dance in
Yes, it
2005 and
really
they're like,
is.
yeah, it's just not. I mean, again, just that
Especially because the
modern.
rest of the balls in that film are in, like, a traditional white room of the
Yeah.
house, you know? That's so
Yeah.
funny. I never really thought about it until we had this conversation, how different that ball is.
It's very different. Yeah. Yeah. And that bleacher scene just very
It's bad.
2005 to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so after we're so this is all kind of how we're introduced to all these characters, and we get some more of the story, but we're going to fast forward a little bit because we are introduced to Wickham later on in the film.
Mhm.
Well, in the story. And there's a lot of dialogue and discourse that happens up until this point, but that's kind of the next main piece of the puzzle is being introduced to Mr. Wickham and how much of a reaction he elicits from Mr. Darcy and how confused Elizabeth is by
Mhm.
that reaction.
Yeah, again, I think that happens quicker in the movie as it has to. And they do cut so much of his storyline out, which is such a critical part of the novel. He's the reason Elizabeth starts to really distrust Darcy, not just not
Yeah,
like him, but why he actively tries to get her to not trust him. And I think how fast they move with that from like the time you meet him, I just think it's too underdeveloped in the movie.
sure.
Um, yeah, yeah, he shows up and they both are introduced in the town, right, in Meryton, in both the show and the movie, if I
Right.
remember right. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Um, yeah. And we talked about how we feel about both of them. I think, I don't know, in the BBC, I don't know, he's flirty and he's, right away, but I think in the movie, it's played up right away, like you said, through that eye contact he makes with Darcy. So you're more focused on him and Elizabeth in the show, I think, right away. Or in the movie, you start to see that plot unfolding from the moment you meet him.
Yeah. I do like how it's more developed in the show. And even the
Hmm.
scene where um Mr. Darcy and Mr. Wickham see each other again is there's a lot more to it in the show than there is there's like a quick little glance and he runs away on his horse
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah.
um and that's just nature of having more airtime than the film, I think. And I think
Yeah.
I said last week that I do think the film got across what it needed to in order to tell the story, but I do appreciate the more in-depth storytelling we got in the show.
And it's a huge part of the book. So I think I know you have to make cuts in a movie, but I think they did cut it too much. Like it is the catalyst for Darcy and Elizabeth's situation. Everything that he is the reason why.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway,
Well, and we can get into it later because like you said, he first of all is the reason why she does have so much animosity towards Mr. Darcy in the beginning because of
yep,
all the lies that he's feeding her. And then he's sort of the reason they get together in the end because of how Mr. Darcy fixes the situation.
exactly. Yeah.
But we'll get to that. First, we're going to get to Mr. Collins' introduction and his proposal. First to Jane, well,
Hmm.
not a proposal to Jane, but he's interested in Jane. And luckily for
I
Jane,
love
she's
this. Yeah.
already kind of promised to Mr. Bingley. So Mama says, "Why don't you like my second oldest, Elizabeth?"
Right.
Um, so both I feel pretty awkward in both portrayals. How about you?
Yeah. They're like I said, yeah, the last time. I think they both do a great job. He's just so absurd. Both of the actors do a great job with it in the book. Actually, I put a marker in this is one of the markers
Oh,
I
yeah.
got at your book party.
Yes.
So can I read it? Because
Yes.
this is just like typical Mr. Collins. So this is the scene where in the adaptations he talks about the boiled potatoes, right? What excellent boiled potatoes. So in the book it
Yeah, I think we
says,
all know that line.
yes, exactly. He doesn't say that in the book. He says, um, but here he was set right by Mrs. Bennet, who assured him. Oh, sorry, wait, I started at the wrong part. He said he was complimenting them on everything, their furniture, the dining room, praising them. As he does, he makes note of all the like material things, right? The dinner, too, in its turn, was highly admired, and he begged to know to which of his fair cousins the excellency of its cooking was owing. But here he was set right by Mrs. Bennet, who assured him with some asperity that they were very well able to keep a good cook, and that her daughters had nothing to do in the kitchen. And this is the funny part. He begged pardon for having displeased her. In a softened tone, she declared herself not at all offended, but he continued to apologize for about a quarter of an hour.
Oh my gosh. This
So
man.
I know. So it's that, that's like the subtle Austen humor that I love. He continued to apologize for a quarter of an hour. You could just hear him doing that.
I
I
know,
know.
yes. Yeah, both and
Yeah.
both of those actors, like, I can see both of them doing that too.
Yeah, totally. And he says something like to Elizabeth when he approaches her for the first time, he's like, from almost the moment I saw you, I was interested in you. Like, from almost the moment.
Yeah, so he's definitely an awkward character.
Yeah.
And the oh my gosh, have you seen the reel that's going around right now where they turn Pride and Prejudice into the horror movie?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. It's
Yes,
so
and,
well
like, I'm
done.
just remembering the little flower that he holds up
Yes.
right before he
And
starts
her face is
proposing.
like, yeah.
Yes, yes, it's so good, so, so good. So listeners, if you haven't seen that, you have to try to search Pride and Prejudice horror movie trailer. They turned the 2005 film and made it a horror trailer, and it's so good.
Well, they have a lot of material to work with because there's a lot of scenes where Keira Knightley's just like staring off into space, twirling on her
Yes.
swing.
Oh, yes, it's so good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You guys have to
Yeah.
watch it because it's really good. Um, so uh, Elizabeth, she denies Mr. Collins, and mother's very upset, but dad says you're gonna either not speak to one of your parents because mom won't talk to you. If you don't marry him, I'm not gonna talk to you. If you do, marry him. And then some more times goes by, some more story goes by, and Lizzie's confronted with another proposal by Mr. Darcy this time.
This is one of my
And you're just
favorite
like,
scenes.
what?
It's my favorite
um,
scene in the book.
okay.
So that's why I'm so disappointed with the movie version of it because it's so different and
It was very different.
it's like overly dramatic for me with the rain and I know like I don't know. I think again that subtleness that comes through in Jane Austen's writing. I think they did a great job with that in the scene with Colin Firth and Jennifer Ely. I just love it. And he literally almost everything he says is taken exactly from the book. And that's the quote where I have what he says in my locket. So it's
And
one of my
I
favorite scenes. Yeah.
I did like the BBC version, even though I'm so used to the movie version. Um, I liked the acting a lot because they're both kind of surprised by what's going on and what's transpiring, and
Transpiring. Mhm.
getting shocked and then angry, and then they are like, okay, well, we're not on the same page here,
Yeah.
which makes the second proposal so much better later. And then, yes, in the film, it's a lot more emotional, I feel
Yeah.
like.
They almost look like they're going to kiss each other at one point, which is
Yes,
not real. Like that would never have happened. I think that
right.
was the most like icky part of it for me, besides the rain. I don't like the rain.
Yeah, I mean, and the movie's a drama, a romance, and the rain always adds a little bit of drama.
Yeah, it's definitely
But
drama.
um, I do like the rain. And I like the way Matthew Macfadyen looks in the rain. Um, but any other thoughts up until this point? Because I know that we're kind of condensing a lot of it, because there's it's a big story, and there's a
Yeah.
lot to compare. But up to Darcy's first proposal.
No, I think that's good. I mean, this is where things start to shift, right? Because gives her his letter next, and that's when things really start to change. Yeah.
Yes, and it is interesting that she, believes, she's had all these lies fed to her by Mr. Wickham, and then he explains this is who Mr. Wickham really is in this letter. And then that's when she starts to question everything
Yep.
that she's kind of all these feelings about him, Mr. Darcy and Mr. Wickham.
Yeah. And I think she starts to connect the dots, right? She starts to see
Right.
what's really been happening. Um,
Yeah. And then
was it
the
in the BBC, she reads, they show her reading it and they like narrate the full letter, right?
yes,
Is it the same? Which one has the flashbacks of Wickham? I'm getting
the
them mixed
show.
up in my head now.
Yeah, the
Okay.
show has the
Yeah.
flashbacks because in the movie, I believe this is the moment where like the time is passing. She's
Okay.
standing there and the letters being read over top of the film, and I think like
Okay.
it's I think she's staring out the window or something, and the time is passing by,
Okay.
if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, I definitely like seeing all the flashbacks
Yeah.
in the
And again,
show.
that's the stuff that's left out where then it loses like the impact, I feel like, when you don't really understand like just how much Wickham really betrayed Darcy, with
Yes,
everything that he
he's
did. Yeah.
very sneaky and shady. Not a
Yeah.
great guy. And unless you're paying attention to exactly what's being said because it's not being shown on screen in the film, you
Right.
you do lose the impact of that.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Um, Unfortunately, Wickham moves on to Lydia and has taken Lydia away. She was on a trip, which I don't think we get in the film. I don't think I really understood that as much
Yeah.
as I did when I was reading and watching the BBC version. But she is sent away, and Elizabeth does beg her dad not to
He
send her
does.
in both versions. And that's not something that stuck with me in the film either. Like, I didn't that didn't register with me when I first watched the film. And when I watched it again after reading the book, I'm like, oh, she does have this conversation with him. So she begs him not to send her because she's going to embarrass them, and she ends up embarrassing them. Um, Lydia has run off with Mr. Wickham.
Not cool.
No. Um, she's distraught in both versions. Mrs. Bennet is unconsolable in both
She is.
versions. I mean, this is a big deal because it's going to bring shame on the entire family, basically, and like none of the daughters are going to be able to get married.
Yeah. And I think that is something, I think that point gets lost maybe in both versions, just like why is this such a big deal, especially for modern viewers watching it? Maybe you
Mhm.
don't really understand why is this such a big deal? They've run off to, obviously it's not nice if you run off and don't tell modern days, go run off and elope and not tell your family, but it's not going to destroy your family's reputation
Right.
it's a huge, huge deal. And I think the way, well, okay, the way they show it in the show, how she reads the letter from Jane, I think it just brings out more of the distress because you see her reaction. You start to understand, I think, that Darcy is maybe gonna do something to help her, like the way he reacts and then leaves. Like you start to, where in the book, I don't think you really even understand that I got a glimpse of him that maybe he was gonna help the situation, the way he reacts to her in the BBC show when he comes into the room, finds out what happened, and then he leaves like that. I think that like interaction starts to give you a little like foreshadowing that what he's about to do.
Interesting, because I felt, and first of all, there's two letters, right, from Jane.
Um,
Because in the film, there's only one, and I might be thinking of a different scene.
she
Because there
writes
was one
one
letter,
letter. She writes one letter about Lydia, and then
but
and then
she wasn't there something with the mail, and she ended up having two letters, and she read the one and then immediately started reading the second one. But maybe this is not the right time.
is that when Jane was in London about Bingley?
Maybe, maybe.
I don't
Um,
know.
Either way,
Some
so
of these details
yeah.
are getting mushed in my brain right now, but
The aunt and
um,
uncle, she has the letter. She wants to read it from Jane. The aunt and uncle go on ahead, and you see her start to get very emotional, and she realizes she needs to go find her aunt and uncle, and that's when she runs into Mr. Darcy in the
yep,
show. And then in the film, they're already at dinner. Like they've already decided to have
right.
dinner. He's
That's right.
already there, and she gets the letter, comes out crying, can't talk, goes back, and then comes out again and says what has happened to Lydia. Um,
Right.
and
And they
then
all find out at the same time, right?
yes, right.
Yes, yes,
Because she tells them all at the same time, which for a film, sure, like to just get all that out of the way at
yeah,
the same time makes sense. But
yeah,
so going back to what you were saying, I think in the show, it made him, Colin's portrayal was more, and feel like even in her acting, he leaves abruptly and
uh-huh.
you don't know. It's almost like, oh man, he's like, he doesn't want anything to do with it
Judging
anymore.
her again.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
you can see that hurt on her face as well. Come to find
yeah,
out he's putting all this in place, and
yeah.
saving them. But I did really, really like how they portrayed it in the show.
What he does for Lydia. Yeah, me too.
Not yet.
How he
How this whole moment of her explaining, like, trusting Darcy with this information first and
right. Well,
foremost.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm reading into her trusting him or just simply that I know what's gonna happen, and so you can I don't know. I always feel like
Yeah.
in that moment I'm like, oh, it's coming. Yeah, it's coming. It's
Yeah.
all. So maybe it's just me getting excited that they're actually gonna get over their pride very soon and
And
come out
because
with it.
you've read the book more than me, but
Yes.
doesn't she question it? Like, okay, I haven't heard from him. He left so urgently.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
She
Yeah. So
absolutely
she
does.
okay.
She thinks like now if he wasn't done with me before, now he's really done with me.
And I think that
Yeah.
that's portrayed much better in the BBC show than in the film.
Yeah.
And again, the film just doesn't have the time to do that,
Yeah.
because I feel like it's like the next scene he's fixing it basically
Yep.
in the film.
Yeah.
So, yes, Lydia spills the beans that
Right.
Darcy's the one that paid for the wedding. And then we get to see how Mr. Wickham's reacting to this marriage. And um, in the book and the show, she has a conversation with Wickham and is like, "Oh, we're siblings now," or whatever she says. In the movie, she completely gives him the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
So I really like seeing that conversation and just like putting him in his place with her words instead of just ignoring him that the film does.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. It's definitely more developed. I like that scene. I picture again, like what do I picture first? I picture the scene where Lydia comes home from her honeymoon, and her attitude even with her sisters in that scene, I think is so,
Oh yeah, she's so
she's like,
cocky.
oh, I'll go first, right? Doesn't she say,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
I'm
because
gonna go
I'm
first because
married.
I'm married now? Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, and I really
Oh,
did. We talked
Lydia,
about it a
typical
little
Lydia.
bit in the last episode, but I really did like her portrayal a lot more. Like she's still over the top, but not like overacting in a
Yeah,
way. Um, okay, so that all happens. Now we
yes.
can get
Now we
to
get to the proposals.
Bingley's
Yes.
proposal. And I again I just love Bingley so much. He is just such a sweetheart.
He is.
And Jane, I just like those two characters together.
They are. They're both sweet and gentle. And it's like, oh, finally they can come out with it and tell each other how they've really been feeling all this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think I picture it happening the way it happened in the miniseries, in the drawing room and they're all kind of like waiting, they were all together and they give them space and they come back. I think it's
Yeah. Now
more how I picture it happening in that time period.
in the film, they add the little montage of Mr. Bingley practicing with Mr.
Yes,
Darcy,
I know. I
and
know.
it's so cute.
It is
But
cute.
do you think it was needed? Because that doesn't
No.
happen in the book, and it takes up time that they could be doing something else in the
Yeah, but
film.
again, there's a lot of that in the film. There's a lot of
Tough.
They could have included more Wickham if they'd cut out some of the other stuff. But again, it's just it's a they're trying to get your emotions. So that gives it some
Yeah.
more, it makes it
And it
feel,
does make me smile.
yeah, it makes you get the feels, right? So that's what
Yes, it
the
does.
movie does a good job with that.
Mhm. Okay, so Jane and Bingley are finally engaged, and now it's time for Elizabeth and Darcy to reunite and kind of finally reveal their feelings for each other.
Well, is this your favorite scene in the movie? Because I think it's like my favorite scene is Darcy coming out of his pond in the miniseries. This is the misty field scene that
Yeah.
people
Oh my
reenact
gosh,
whenever there's
wait.
a misty field.
I feel like there's one, yes, and it's a beautiful scene. I mean, and
It
that's
is.
why
Yeah.
the film is so beautiful. The music is so beautiful. The cinematography is so beautiful, and I think that's why it's so popular. Like, yes, it's Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice story, which is a great story, but then the film is so beautiful. And that's why I think both the 1995 and 2005 are so good in their own ways. But before we finish with the reunion, we forgot one key plot point, which is Lady, whatever her name is, coming to
Lady
confront
Catherine.
Lady Catherine
Mhm.
coming to
Yep.
confront Elizabeth. I think that's a really important one to talk about. And we haven't really talked about her in general. So, real quick, listeners, I assume you're listening to this episode because you've read or seen these adaptations. But of course, Lady Catherine is Darcy's aunt.
She's his aunt. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And he's technically supposed to be engaged to her daughter.
Yes. Her
Yes.
ill, sicky daughter. Yeah.
And so she heard a rumor that Darcy was going to propose and comes to the Bennet's home to confront her and make her promise that she won't ever accept a proposal from Darcy.
Yes.
And she says horrible things to Elizabeth about her and her family. And Elizabeth kind of stands up to her and says, "No, I won't promise you that." And I think
Yeah.
that's a very important key plot point that we shouldn't gloss over.
Yeah. And again, in the miniseries, it's like almost word for word from the novel. So I think it shows the dialogue is done really well and is very faithful to the book. Um,
I
and
do
like,
like in the film though how I'm not usually one to appreciate how dramatic the adaptations make things, but I
mhm,
do love how dramatic the film made this scene because she comes in the middle of the night, everybody
yep,
wakes up,
yep.
and
It
she's
is,
so aggressive. And I think that, and especially for a more modern, younger audience, that aggression with what she's saying, you need that aggression to have that impact on like this. She's being very nasty right now.
yeah,
Whereas in the show, they're just walking around the garden and you can tell there's some animosity there, but it's still all very rather calm.
yeah. Again, that comes back to why I like Jennifer Ely's portrayal more than Keira Knightley's, and it's because it is just more subtle and appropriate, I think, for the time period versus would that really have happened? I know Lady Catherine's very angry, but would she really show up in the middle of the night? I don't know if that would,
Yeah.
I don't know. But
I
I
get
get it
it.
for the drama. I mean, it does create an effect. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a big deal. Yeah.
It is a big deal. And so and then are we supposed to think she's finding out about that initial proposal, or are we supposed to think, is he going to ask her again?
Yeah, do you know that's a good point. I don't really know the answer to that question. I think I've always assumed that she's heard Darcy might propose, but maybe it is because she heard that he already did propose. So I don't know. I'm not
Just
sure if that's
gossip in
ever,
one way or the other. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know that it's ever made clear in the book where she got the information, if it was about the upcoming proposal or the first
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I always thought maybe somehow that original proposal leaked in some way, although I don't
that
know
makes
who would have
sense.
said it because I don't think Darcy would admit that he was turned down. And
That's true.
Elizabeth didn't tell anybody. So
That's
I
true.
always
Yeah.
wondered where Lady Catherine got this information and why. and especially because the film, it's so urgent. Like she's like, I just heard this
Right.
information. He's going to propose to you tomorrow. I've got to find you tonight,
Right.
and tell you not to accept the proposal.
Yeah, it definitely
So
feels
yeah,
like
it's
it's
always just
about
really
his
interesting.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do not think it's made clear in the book why or how she got that information.
Okay, so now we can rewind to the Elizabeth and Darcy reunion. And yes, Colin coming out of the lake white shirt scene is at his home. Um, and that's kind of before all the
No,
Wickham
no,
stuff.
yeah, that's not the proposal scene. I'm just saying that's the iconic Colin Firth
Yes.
scene, and the Misty Field
This,
scene is
yes.
the iconic Matthew Macfadyen scene.
Yes, 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 yes. Coming through the field, and they don't even kiss or anything. They just kind of like touch foreheads, and it's just so romantic. Um, and then
It is a beautiful scene.
he um then we have the scene of them in a garden or something at nighttime, and talking about the, only call me Mrs. Darcy when you're super happy. And then in the show, we have the dual weddings and more of an
Yes.
epilogue, I think, in the show, but even the book
Yep,
has more of an epilogue than either of them.
it does. Yep, yep. Yeah, and their conversation, they're walking, right? When they decide to reunite and get married, they're just on a walk
Oh,
when they
yes.
kind of
Actually,
separate
you
by
know what?
themselves.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like them both in such different ways, because
yeah.
in the show, okay, Colin, you can see him get so excited when he's like, if your feelings have changed. And she's so smiley, and she's like, you know what? My feelings have
Yeah,
changed.
it feels very genuine. It's like it just happens like it unfolds
Yes.
naturally and it feels very genuine and real.
But in the movie, it's so beautiful and it's so
It is.
romantic. So they're
It
both
is.
so romantic in different ways. So
Yep.
it's hard to pick which one does it better.
I think they're, like I said last time, I think both have their good things.
Yeah,
So I mean, both of these scenes I think are good in their own way.
definitely.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on to our analysis and bookmark moments, I want to ask you, because I know you've mentioned the Wickham stuff being cut. Is there anything else you want to talk about with his story being cut in the film?
Um, I don't know. I guess, I get needing to cut things. Like let me sidetrack for 1 second. So one of the
Mhm.
things we didn't talk about was other things that are we going to talk about other things
Yes.
that got
Mhm.
cut?
Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you know, Bingley's sisters, I
Yes.
love both of them in the BBC. I love Caroline and her evil stepsister outfits. And I love Mrs. Hurst, which is his other sister who's married, and her husband is always like snoring in the background of every scene. That, again, the subtle humor of her husband snoring off the side of every social gathering cracks me up every time I see it.
Because he's not
And
really in the book, right?
no, he's in the book as the guy like snoring in the corner. Like he is
Okay,
that
okay.
in the book. Yeah. So I don't like that. I don't like that they cut her. I don't know, because it's just that subtle humor, like the like comedic elements like that make Pride and Prejudice what it is. It's not just a
Sure.
serious book about love and redemption, whatever. It's not just about these serious topics.
Mhm.
There's this lighthearted, funny stuff woven all throughout, and I just think that little subplot is so funny. But the Wickham stuff, you know, one of the we didn't really talk about this as a theme, but just the idea that first impressions can be misleading. So it's prejudice, right? So okay, so the theme of prejudice, right? So we see him from the beginning and think he's a gentleman, right? And then all of a sudden he's not. And I just think it's not as believable in the movie because of there's
Just how
just not
quick
enough
it
time to
is.
develop that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it just comes down to that believability. Not that it's confusing. I think you still understand what happened, but it just doesn't make as much sense. And it makes so much sense when you get the whole story. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think a
yeah.
big part of that is that we don't get those flashbacks.
Yeah.
And again, if you're not if you're not paying attention to like the tiny details, you are going to miss a lot of that from the film because it does happen just too quickly.
It does. Yeah.
Mhm.
I wish they would have cut other stuff instead.
What would you have cut from the film?
Keira Knightley on a swing.
Yes.
All those little like see, I mean, they spend minutes. Like there are literal minutes taken from that we could have taken out of the movie that were just
Yes.
unnecessary, kind of mopey looking
Uh-huh.
dramatic scenes, you
Yep.
know? And they could have added in some key stuff using that time, but
Yeah,
it's
and again,
it's
going back to
drama.
the flashbacks, like I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's when she's staring at the window, and it's just Matthew Macfadyen's voiceover, and we're just watching her staring. Yeah, I think it's she's staring at the mirror, and he comes behind her, and then she's staring
Yeah.
at the window. So yeah, I mean, why couldn't we do flashbacks
I know.
during
It's
that
just
scene?
a little too much, but
Yes. Um, well, okay, anything else, or any changes, like, that you think the show or the film the show didn't really do too much different from the book, but any
yeah.
changes you think the movie did well?
Um, well, like we've already said, I think just the cinematography, the visual elements, like how beautiful
Yeah.
it is just you cannot compare it to the series. The series is dry when it comes to those elements. It is,
Yeah.
it's that is not its strength. So, but
It's
you
very
lose so
monotone in color.
yes, it is. But you lose it. But I almost see Jane Austen in monotone color when I read it because
Mm,
it's just everyday situations. Like there's no it's just like real people, real life. It's like I don't know, when I think about anything in history, I tend to think about things in black and white or like sepia tone, right? And
right,
then sometimes I'll like look around and be like, no, like everyone in the past world looked exactly like this, right? And our
right.
yes, the world is beautiful, but it's not dramatic like the movie. It's just like
Well, and the movie's moody, like, the
it's
lighting is
moody, yeah.
darker and lots of blues.
Yeah. So I just picture it more like everyday life. So it's just like a
Yeah.
normal, like, so that it doesn't bother me that it's not visually stunning in the series.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't bother me. But obviously, if we're looking for something that's stunning and dramatic, you can't really compare it. But it's at the loss of, I think, you know,
The story.
lots of things. Key part of the story, you lose a lot of Jane Austen's language. I think they totally could have included more of the original language. There's no reason why they couldn't have.
Well,
I
and
don't
a
know
really
why they
great
didn't.
example of using the actual language is the Romeo and Juliet film with,
Yes.
Leonardo
Hmm.
DiCaprio, because that is his
Yeah.
dialogue. It's his script in the film, but it's a modern take on the film, but
Yeah.
the actual dialogue, which is a really
Well,
great.
it's a huge, I would say if you claim to do Shakespeare and you don't use the language, it's like, oh, no, 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 you can't do that.
Right.
That would like not be accepted by anyone that appreciates Shakespeare if they had completely changed it. Then it's
Mhm.
just a total, you know, adaptation. It's not even counted as Shakespeare. But
Exactly.
there's no reason why they couldn't have included more of her language in the movie. I don't know
Yeah.
why they didn't. I don't know, but maybe it's just they were trying to modernize it a little bit. Maybe it's just not like you said when you were reading it, you're like, it's not what I'm used to reading, it's not what I'm used to hearing. So maybe they
Yes.
were just trying to make it appealing to people that you don't read 19th century literature
Right.
often. It's not familiar.
Mm.
It might have been more difficult to convey to a modern audience. I don't know, but I still think they could have included more of some of the iconic stuff. That there was no reason why they cut certain things.
Yeah,
I
I
don't think.
agree. I
Yeah,
agree. Yeah. All right. Well, okay, which medium do you think told the story better, or did they both succeed in their own ways? And I know that you think BBC told the story better than the movie, but do you think BBC told the story better than the book? So the book
no,
is better.
the book is always better. Where's my mug? I have a coffee mug. The book was better. um, but I love Jane Austen. I've always, when I was an English major, I majored in my major, studied mostly 18th, well, mostly 19th century British literature. So that's this, and
Yeah.
so I have an appreciation for literature written during this time, and I just love it. So nothing will ever beat the book for me, I don't think. But I think BBC comes as close as you can get. I feel like I don't, I don't feel like I'm betraying Jane Austen and loving that, loving that version of it.
Right. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and I think to summarize our conversations again, at least my view is that the BBC is a really great adaptation. It brings the story to life. And then the film is a beautiful movie that uses Pride and Prejudice as inspiration to tell its story.
yeah,
So I do think that they all succeed in their own ways. Um, but if you want to watch Pride and Prejudice, you go to the BBC show. And if you want to watch a warm and cozy romance, you go to the film.
yeah. That's a good way to put it. It is.
Thank
I
you.
think any book adaptation, no one's going to say the movie's better when it's a book to movie. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you know better than me. You're looking at all these different adaptations, but I think unless you give it the time it needs, like a mini series, I think
Yeah.
you're not going to get really close as a movie. You can get pretty close if you dedicate more time to it.
Yeah.
You can
And
fit so much more in a book. How many pages is Pride and Prejudice? 280 pages, and you need 6 hours to tell it,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
longer books. I mean, how many hours would you need to really do a faithful, you
Yep.
can't do it in a movie. Can't do it in a
No.
movie.
Well, and I I started this podcast with The Hunger Games because I think The Hunger Games is one of my favorite adaptations, but that might be the only one that I think a film did the book justice because I always think that to adapt a book, it needs to be a show. You need to
Yep,
have more than 2 hours to get
I agree.
everything across, or it's just inspiration, like the Pride and Prejudice film just uses Jane Austen as inspiration to tell its story because there is so much cut because you can only tell so much story in a 2-hour session.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's move on to our bookmarked moments. The first is what you liked best about the adaptations.
um, I like the use of language in the original language in the show. And I really enjoy the music in the movie. Like I could listen to that soundtrack, background
Yeah.
music while I'm working. It's just very,
I
and it
used
gives me good vibe, good feels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's a beautiful soundtrack, and I actually used to be able to play some of the music on the piano, but that was a
Oh,
very
that's
long time
cool.
ago. That was when, like, the movie had come out, and I was still religiously playing piano.
New
Um,
goals. My kids are learning piano, so now I
oh,
gotta
good.
have them learn
Yes,
it.
give them the soundtrack
Yeah.
music. Oh, that would
Yeah.
be so pretty to hear. Okay, least favorite part of the adaptation.
I really don't like the hair in the BBC, but it is accurate
Yeah,
to the time.
yeah,
So it's not that it's not accurate. I just don't like it. It's just the
neither.
harsh
It's so
parts down the
tight.
middle and the
Yes.
little tight curls in the front.
Yes.
It's just not fun to watch. And like I think you said, it's distracting. I do find it distracting. I'm like, can we not like?
Mhm.
I wish they could just take it down, let it loose. And my least favorite in the movie is cutting out of my favorite line.
Yes, I bet. I know.
Yeah.
Aw. And it's not even like they cut it, they just changed it because he does say
Yeah,
I
maybe. Yeah,
he
that's
does say ardently at some point, but it's like,
no, he doesn't say, does he say ardently? He does. He says, I think he says one word from it, but it's all chopped up and
what's
weird and it
yes, it is
doesn't
chopped up.
flow.
What's
Yeah.
the line again? Do you remember?
In vain I have struggled, it will not do. My feelings cannot be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you.
Yeah, okay, I do think he says something about being in vain, and then I think he says, "I love you," pause, "most ardently" in the film.
Yes. But like why?
I know.
Why
Yeah,
couldn't we?
yeah, yeah.
That's why I'm like, there was no reason. Like they could have just said it the way she wrote it, which is so beautiful and perfect. There was no reason.
No, I agree with you in the concept. It doesn't bother me because I didn't know the line first, but there
Yeah.
have been moments where I'm like, been waiting for this moment in the film, in the adaptation, and it doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen the way I want it to happen, and I'm so
Yeah.
disappointed. So I completely understand the feelings you have about it.
Yeah. The first time I read the book, when I got to that part, I will never forget it. I looked over at my college boyfriend at the time and I was like, I want Mr. Darcy. I was like,
Yep.
no one will ever compare to Mr. Darcy now.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he is the iconic book boyfriend. Like
Yes.
we mentioned in the last episode, this was the original enemies to lovers
Yep.
story, but Mr. Darcy is the original book boyfriend.
I agree.
Yep.
He's my
And
favorite book boyfriend.
yes. um, okay. The last bookmarked moment is, what is the most memorable moment of Pride and Prejudice? It can be from the book or from like something the adaptation just knocked out of the park.
Oof, that's so hard. A lot of it's stuff we've already talked about for me, I think, but um hmm. Oh my gosh, nail that down to. Do you have one while I think? That is hard. I'm trying to
Well,
think of something we haven't already talked about.
right, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
my most memorable moment is going to be Mr. Darcy walking across the field.
Okay. All right. Well, mine is him coming out of his pond. There we go.
Okay.
I mean that scene lives rent free in my head.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Okay. Well, Krista, thank you again so much for coming onto the podcast. Is there anything you would like to share with our listeners?
think we have to get team Colin, team Matthew shirts to wear.
Yes. Okay. We could do that.
But with your listeners, no, I think thanks for having me on. This was so much fun.
Yep, absolutely.
And
And please come back for the new adaptation coming out
yes, I
soon.
am actually really excited about it because like we just said, it is a series. So
Mhm.
I have hopes they may do something really cool with it. You know, that they're gonna give it time. I mean, think about how far things have come just with
Yes.
how movies are filmed now compared to 1995. Like this could actually be, it could has the potential to be amazing.
I had a thought though that I want to discuss with you. Do you
Okay.
think the hype around Bridgerton and how much popularity Bridgerton has is going to taint Pride and Prejudice? Like, do you think they're going to try to make Pride and Prejudice like Bridgerton?
So I have a confession. I haven't watched it. So I know, is it Regency time period? When is it set? Is it the same?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean,
Queen Charlotte and George
yeah.
are is it's during their
Oh,
reign.
okay. See, I don't even know that. I'm so bad. I know I have to watch it. Everyone told me that I would like it, and I
Oh,
haven't
really?
gotten
Because I
into
don't
it.
think you will.
No?
I
Oh,
don't think you will.
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
because it's
you know me well, so
well, I mean, it's good for like as a drama, but it's not like you're not gonna like the historic like it's not historic
Oh yeah, I
accurate.
know it's not historically accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I did try to watch. I think I tried to watch the first episode when it first came out, and I was like, nope. But everyone loves it so much. Like
Yeah.
I think I should give it another try. But
Um
I don't know. It could be because it is
the
super popular.
spin-off season of Queen Charlotte, loved that. I absolutely adore that season. And
Okay.
it's about her and George meeting and becoming a couple. Um and I love and like he's succumbing to his disease throughout the season, and
Okay.
she doesn't know until later on. Anyway, I absolutely adored that show, and I think the acting was incredible. So if
It's
anything,
humorous, right? They take like a is there like a humorous spin on yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a humorous spin on his disease. There is
No, but
humor in the
on the
show.
story. Yeah, like the way they portray a historical like drop like narrative is in like a more of a lighthearted way. Is
Bridgerton
that
in general or Queen Charlotte?
yeah, Bridgerton.
Yeah, Bridgerton in general is more comedic. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Have you seen The Great? This is not an
No, I've
adaptation.
seen I know what you're talking about though, but I haven't sat down and like watched the full season.
Loved that. And that is totally not historically accurate, but it is hilarious. So I
So
like
I
when
don't think
they're
Bridgerton
not
is as
claiming to be
funny.
historically accurate. Okay.
Right. Well, and Bridgerton isn't either,
Yeah,
but
so that
it's
doesn't
so
bother me
Bridgerton
then.
is definitely just like a drama set in the Regency, like young
Okay.
adult drama. I wouldn't actually, it's not young adult because there's a lot of sex in it, but I don't know. I would like maybe watch Bridgerton. Let me know what you think of it, but definitely watch Queen Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
if it's not trying to be historically accurate, then that doesn't
so
bother
if the
me. Yeah.
new Pride and Prejudice show, like, do you want it to be like, do you want it to be like off the walls, not historically accurate, modern for a younger audience, or do you want it to be like the BBC?
I would love I would love a true Austen that like stick as true to the book and her language as possible, but make it really pretty.
Okay.
That's what I would like. I would
Okay.
like a visually stunning because there's nothing wrong with the book, so there's no reason to change it. That's my opinion.
Okay. Okay.
So
So I
you're like,
do
why
think like a
change it?
Bridgerton-esque style of the show, but using her dialogue.
Yeah, tell the whole story. Use the language as much as possible where when it makes sense to use her dialogue, but just make it visually stunning. It could do that. There's shows that do that
Yeah.
where
Yeah, absolutely.
they tell even a true story, about someone, but it's visually beautiful. So
Mhm.
I think they could do that and really kill it. And nobody's done that before with this book.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that tangent. Thank you again for coming on. I'm excited to see what the new one will be like. And listeners, we will see you next week for another episode of Book Watch.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Book Watch. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of page to screen adaptations. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share it with your fellow book and movie lovers. If you'd prefer to watch along, you can check the show out on YouTube. You can follow the show on Instagram at Bookwatch Podcast, and you can follow me, Sarah Day, on Instagram at captain.mcdee. That's MCDEE. You can also join the conversation in the Bookwatch Lounge on Facebook at www.facebook.com/groups/bookwatchlounge. If you would like to support the podcast, you can join the Patreon at www.patreon.com/bookwatchpodcast. Tiers start at only $4 a month, and I'd love to have you over there. If you have a favorite adaptation you'd like to cover with me, I'd love for you to apply to be on the show with the contact form on our website at www.bookwatchpodcast.com. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and I'll see you next week.